Nobody remembers the name of the janitor who changed history. But everyone remembers Danny Reeves, the man he bumped into outside the Earth Embassy on Nexus Station, spilling coffee across the only suit Danny owned. Danny had come to visit his daughter Linda, who worked as a junior diplomat. He had no business being at the embassy during the selection ceremony. He certainly had no business being anywhere near Ambassador Whitfield when the alien delegation arrived, demanding humanity's champion for the Karath Games. The Karath Games happened every 50 cycles. Species from across the unified worlds sent their greatest warriors to compete. It was part sport, part politics, part ancient tradition. Winners gained honor for their entire species. Losers were forgotten. Earth had joined the unified worlds 5 years ago. This was their first invitation. The problem was simple. Humans had no warrior class, no champions trained for birth. Their military worked differently, relying on technology and teamwork rather than individual combat masters. Ambassador Whitfield was sweating through his formal robes when Danny walked past, coffee-stained and confused. The alien delegation, led by a glowing luminary named High Adjudicator Senna, watched with obvious amusement. "You must select someone," Senna said. Her voice rang like crystal. "The invitation cannot be refused. It would insult 300-member species. We need time to find someone suitable," Whitfield stammered. "The transport leaves in 1 hour." Danny stopped walking. He had heard enough. What kind of competition? Every head turned toward him. Senna's glow flickered with what might have been surprise. "Kumba, unarmed or with traditional weapons. Our champions trained for decades in the sacred arts of war." Danny scratched his gray stubble. "Like fighting? Hand to hand. The finest warriors in the galaxy," Senna confirmed. "The Dracorian champion has trained since hatching. 47 of your years perfecting his craft. The Luminari representative has not lost a match in 2 centuries. Whitfield grabbed Danny's arm. "Sir, please, this is a diplomatic matter." But Danny was looking at the alien delegation, at the massive Dracorian warrior standing behind Senna, 8 feet of scaled muscle with 4 arms, at the ethereal Luminari guards whose bodies seemed made of living light. "I used to fight," Danny said. "Professionally. Long time ago." Senna drifted closer. "How long did you train?" "On and off. Maybe 15 years total. Took a break to raise my kids." The Dracorian laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. 15 years. I have trained 3 times that long." "Good for you," Danny said. Whitfield was having a small heart attack. Linda had emerged from her office, staring at her father with horror. But Senna's glow had shifted to something like curiosity. "You would represent your species? Knowing you face warriors who have devoted their entire lives to combat." Danny shrugged. "I got nothing else planned this week." 1 hour later, Danny was aboard a transport ship heading toward the arena station. He sat among alien warriors who towered over him, creatures of scale and claw and light and shadow. They spoke in their own languages, occasionally glancing at the small human in the corner. Danny watched them. He said nothing, but his eyes moved constantly, studying how they moved, how they balanced, where their joints bent. The arena station orbited a massive gas giant, its swirling storms visible through every viewport. The station itself was ancient, built by a species long extinct, maintained now by the unified worlds as neutral ground. Danny was assigned quarters barely larger than a closet. He didn't complain. He had slept in worse. The next morning, he found the observation deck overlooking the training halls. Below, alien champions practiced their arts. The Dracorian, whose name was Tolvesh, moved through forms that looked like violent dancing, forearms striking invisible opponents in perfect rhythm. A blade dancer from Venice spun with weapons that seemed to grow from her own body. A massive Kreth grappler threw practice dummies across the room. Danny watched for 3 hours. He took no notes. He asked no questions that a young alien journalist found him there. She was Venery, covered in soft blue feathers, with large curious eyes. Her name was Rilith, and she had been assigned to cover what everyone assumed would be humanity's embarrassing elimination. "You are the human champion?" she asked, recorder floating beside her. "I guess so. You do not seem concerned." The Dracorian champion alone has killed 14 opponents in previous tournaments. Danny turned to look at her. Kill. Death is not common, but it happens. This is true combat. Danny nodded slowly. He looked back at the training floor, where Tolvesh was now practicing with actual weapons. Huh, he said. Rilith waited for more. There was no more. That evening, on the observation deck overlooking the gas giant, Tolvesh found Danny sitting alone. The Dracorian had to duck through the doorway. Human, Tolvesh said. I have read your species file. You live less than a century. You have no natural weapons. No automat. No venom. Sound about right. You will face me in the first round. I have trained 47 of your years. Every day, every hour devoted to the perfection of combat. Tolvesh leaned closer for arms crossed. How long have you trained? Danny looked up at the massive alien. On and off. Maybe 15 years total. Took a break to raise my kids. Tolvesh stared at him. You are either very brave or very stupid. Danny stood up, his bad knee cracking. He barely reached the Dracorian's chest. Probably both, he said, and walked away to get some sleep. Behind him, Tolvesh watched the small human leave, and for the first time in 47 years of training, felt something he could not name. The arena could seat 200,000 spectators, and every seat was filled. Beings from across the galaxy had come to witness the Koroth Games. Holographic displays carried the event to billions more watching from distant worlds. Danny Reeves stood in the fighter's entrance, looking out at the massive circular platform where he would face Tolvesh. The Dracorian was already there, performing a pre-combat ritual that involved all four arms moving in complex patterns while he chanted in his native tongue. The ritual of Kol Theron, Rilith said beside Danny. She had attached herself to him, sensing a story even if she wasn't sure what kind. It focuses the warrior's mind and honors ancestors who fought before. How long does it take? Usually 30 minutes. Danny did a few stretches. His knee popped twice. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena, introducing Tolvesh first. The crowd roared approval. His record was displayed on massive screens. 43 victories, 14 kills, no defeats, 47 years of training under legendary Master Morvith. Then Danny was introduced. The crowd went quiet. His record showed nothing because there was no galactic record. His species had joined 5 years ago. His training time was listed as approximately 15 years intermittent. Someone in the crowd laughed. Danny walked onto the platform. Tolvesh finished his ritual and turned to face him. Up close, the Dracorian was even more terrifying. His scales were the color of dried blood. His four arms ended in claws that could tear through metal. Any rules I should know about? Danny asked. The referee, a floating drone, answered. Combat continues until yield, unconsciousness, or death. No weapons unless both parties agree. No attacking after yield is called. Got it. Tolvesh dropped into a fighting stance that looked like a statue come to life. Every angle perfect. Every muscle positioned exactly as his training demanded. Danny just stood there, hands loose at his sides. The signal sounded that Tolvesh attacked immediately. His upper right arm swept toward Danny's head, while his lower arms targeted the human's midsection. It was a classic Dracorian opening, designed to overwhelm opponents with multiple simultaneous strikes. Danny wasn't there. He had moved before the first blow landed, stepping to Tolvesh's left, outside the reach of his right arms. The Dracorian adjusted, spinning into a kick that should have shattered ribs. Danny ducked under it. The next 30 seconds were chaos. Tolvesh launched attack after attack, each one drawn from decades of training. Each one executed with perfect form. Danny didn't block any of them. He simply moved, slipped, stepped back, stepped forward at odd angles. Fight me, Tolvesh roared. Danny circled left, in the stands. Master Morvith leaned forward. He had trained Tolvesh from birth. He had seen every fighting style in the galaxy. But the human wasn't using a style. He wasn't doing anything recognizable at all. Tolvesh pressed harder. His attacks came faster, all four arms working in combinations that had defeated champions from a dozen species. Each one missed. Then Danny moved forward. The tea happened so fast that most spectators didn't understand what they saw. Danny stepped inside Tolvesh's reach, too close for the Dracorian's long arms to be effective. His hand shot up, not as a fist, but as an open palm, striking the underside of Tolvesh's upper right arm at a specific point. The arm went limp. Tolvesh staggered back, shocked. "What did you do?" Danny didn't answer. He pressed forward, staying inside the Dracorian's guard. Another strike, this one to a gap in the scales at the hip joint. Tolvesh's left leg buckled. "Nerve clusters," Rilith whispered from the sidelines, suddenly understanding. He found the nerve clusters. Tolvesh fought back with his remaining functional limbs, but panic had entered his movements. His training had never prepared him for this. Opponents were supposed to fight with honor, with recognizable techniques, with respect for the sacred art of combat. This human fought like prey that had suddenly become predator. 2 minutes later, Danny had Tolvesh on the ground. The Dracorian's forearms were locked in positions that prevented movement. Danny's knee pressed against a nerve cluster in Tolvesh's neck. The slightest pressure would cause unbearable pain. "Yield," Danny said quietly. Tolvesh struggled. His scales scraped against the platform. But every movement only tightened Danny's hold. "Yield," Danny repeated. "You fought well. No shame in it." The arena was absolutely silent. 200,000 beings held their breath. "I yield," Tolvesh said. The crowd exploded. Not with cheers, but with confusion, arguments, shouted questions. The drone referee circled overhead, confirming the result. Danny Reeves, representing Earth, had defeated the favored Dracorian champion in 7 minutes. Danny helped Tolvesh to his feet. The Dracorian's arms were already recovering, nerve clusters returning to normal function. "How?" Tolvesh demanded. "How did you know where to strike? You got the same basic layout as us," Danny said. "Joints, nerves, pressure points. Just in different places. I watched you train yesterday. Figured out where everything was. One day, you learned my body's weaknesses in one day." Danny shrugged. "I'm a quick study." Master Morvith pushed through the crowd surrounding the platform. The legendary trainer looked at Danny with something between horror and fascination. "What combat school developed your technique?" Morvith demanded. "What ancient tradition? What master trained you?" Danny laughed. The sound was strange in the silent arena. "School? I learned half my moves from getting my butt kicked in bar fights before I went pro. The rest I picked up along the way." He walked off the platform, leaving 200,000 spectators trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Rilith followed him, recorder active, feathers ruffled with excitement. "You have 2 more fights tomorrow," she said. "A Venery blade dancer and a Kreth grappler. Do you have a strategy?" Danny rotated his shoulder, wincing slightly. "Yeah," he said. "Don't get hit." Rilith spent the night after Danny's first victory digging through every archive she could access. What she found kept her awake until the artificial dawn. Humans had been fighting each other since before they had language. Not just fighting, but developing ways to fight, organizing it, teaching it, competing in it. The record showed thousands of distinct combat styles on Earth alone. Thousands. Some focused on strikes, some on grappling, some on weapons, some on pure survival with no rules at all. They've borrowed from each other, combined, evolved, changed with every generation. Most alien species had one martial tradition. Maybe 2. The Dracorians had practiced Coltherin for 8,000 years, refining it to perfection. The Venery had their blade dance, unchanged for 5 millennia. The Kreth grappled the same way their ancestors had before they achieved spaceflight. Humans had more fighting styles and some species had words. Rilith watched Danny's next 2 matches from the press section, recorder capturing everything. The Venery blade dancer moved like water made solid, her organic blades spinning in patterns that had killed 100 opponents. Danny avoided every attack for 3 minutes, then grabbed a blade mid-spin, accepted a shallow cut on his palm, and used the dancer's own momentum to throw her off the platform. The Kreth grappler was 4 times Danny's weight, with 6 limbs designed for crushing opponents. Danny spent the first minute running away, studying how the Kreth moved. Then he started attacking joints the Kreth didn't even know were vulnerable. The grappler yielded after Danny dislocated something in his 3rd limb. Between matches, Rilith found Shotan, an elderly Kreth philosopher who had observed the games for 200 years. He sat in the upper observation deck, watching the tournaments unfold below. "You understand what is happening," Rilith said. It wasn't a question. "The human adapts," Shotan replied. His voice was slow and thoughtful. "Each fight is different. He carries no tradition into the arena, so he has no tradition to constrain him. But surely training matters. Discipline. Practice. It matters," Shotan agreed. "But consider this. The Dracorian trained for 47 years to perfect techniques developed 8,000 years ago. The human has been learning for 58 years, every day, in a world where violence took new forms constantly. He has faced drunks in bars, criminals in alleys, professional fighters in arenas, perhaps even soldiers in wars. Rilitha's feathers flattened. He has more combat experience. No, he has more kinds of combat experience. Each type taught him something different. We train to master one form. Humans train to survive whatever comes. On Earth, Ambassador Linda Reeves was dealing with an unexpected problem. Her father's victories had caught the attention of every political faction in the unified worlds. The Dracorian Empire wanted to know if Earth had more warriors like Danny. The Luminari Collective was requesting formal diplomatic exchanges about human combat training. 3 different species had already submitted requests for human military advisors. "Dad," Linda said through the communication screen, "do you understand what you've done?" Danny was sitting in his small quarters, icing his knee. "Won some fights. You've made Earth interesting. That's dangerous. Some species are already calling humans a potential threat. Because I beat some people in a tournament. Because you beat people who were supposed to be unbeatable. The Dracorians have been dominant in ground combat for 6,000 years. You dismantled their champion in 7 minutes." Danny was quiet for a moment. "Want me to lose the next one? Would you?" "No." Linda sighed. She knew her father. Once he started something, he finished it. It was the same stubbornness that had kept him fighting professionally until his body almost gave out, that had kept him running his gym through bankruptcy and back. "Just be careful," she said. "Please." "Always am." The semifinals were announced the next day. Danny would face Ethon, the Luminari champion. The being was ancient by human standards, over 200 years old. Its body was made of condensed light, capable of moving faster than organic eyes could track. It had won 37 consecutive tournaments. Ethon sought Danny out before the match, finding him in the station's small garden, a tiny patch of green maintained for species that needed natural environments. The Luminari didn't walk so much as drift, leaving trails of soft light in its wake. "Human," Ethon said. Its voice was like wind through crystal. "I have watched your victories. Congratulations. You fight without honor, without form, without beauty." Danny plucked a leaf from a small plant, examining it. "Probably. Among my people, combat is art. Each movement has meaning. Each technique carries the weight of centuries. What you do is not combat. It is survival wearing the mask of sport." "You're not wrong." Ethon flickered, frustrated. "You admit this freely?" Danny looked up at the being of light. "I grew up on Earth. You know what Earth is like? A death world. Extreme conditions. High gravity. Dangerous fauna. Everything on Earth is trying to kill you. The animals. The weather. The plants sometimes. Even other humans." Danny stood, favoring his good knee. "We didn't develop martial arts because we wanted to. We developed them because we had to. Every generation faced new threats. New enemies. We couldn't afford to stick with one style for 1,000 years. By then, whatever we were fighting would have figured us out." Ethon was silent. "You've had 200 years to perfect your art," Danny continued. "That's beautiful, really. I mean it. But I've spent 58 years learning to survive whatever comes next. Tomorrow, we find out which one matters more." He walked toward the garden exit, then paused. "Get some sleep, kid." Behind him, Ethon flickered again, and for the first time in 2 centuries, the ancient champion felt something like doubt. Sleep wouldn't come. Danny sat on his bunk in the dark, rubbing his knee, listening to the hum of the station around him. Tomorrow he would fight a being made of light who hadn't lost in 200 years that he thought about his wife. Rachel had died 8 years ago, cancer that spread too fast for treatment. He thought about his daughters, both grown now with families of their own. He thought about his gym back in Nevada, probably falling apart without him, but he thought about the last professional fight he ever had. Danny had been 49, already too old for the sport. His opponent was 26, fast and hungry and strong. The fight should have been a retirement match, an easy win to end a decent career. Instead, Danny had ended up in a hospital with 3 cracked vertebrae and a doctor telling him he was lucky to walk again. He had walked out of the hospital and never stepped into a professional ring again. Until now. The observation deck was empty when Danny found his way there. The gas giant filled the viewport, its storms swirling in patterns older than humanity. He stood there for a long time, not thinking about anything in particular. You also cannot sleep. Danny turned. Rilith stood in the doorway, her blue feathers dim in the low light. Mind racing, I have been researching your species all night. She moved to stand beside him, looking out at the gas giant. Your history is very violent. Yeah, not just war. Everything. Your animals hunt each other constantly. Your weather destroys cities. Your planet tries to poison you with diseases. Even your own bodies break down quickly compared to most species. Danny shrugged. Home sweet home. How do you survive? Any of you? It was a real question, Danny realized. Not an insult. She genuinely wanted to understand. We're stubborn, he said. Too stupid to know when to quit. We lose, we get back up. We lose again, we get back up again. Eventually we figure out how not to lose, or we die trying. That seems exhausting. It is. Footsteps announced another arrival. Shotan shuffled onto the observation deck, moving slowly on his aged Kreth limbs. He carried a tray with 3 containers. I thought I might find you here, the old philosopher said. I brought food. Eating alone before battle is bad luck in 17 different cultures. They sat together on the deck floor, an unlikely group. A human, a Venery, and a Kreth, sharing a meal while a gas giant painted the viewport with color. Tell me about your last fight, Shotan said to Danny. The real last one, before you retired. Danny was quiet for a while. I lost. That is not the whole story. No. Danny set down his food. I was too old. My body was breaking down. I knew it, but I kept fighting because I didn't know what else to do. Then I fought someone younger and faster, and he almost killed me. But you survived. I survived. Spent 2 months in the hospital. 3 more months learning to walk right again. My wife sat by my bed the whole time. She was already sick, but she didn't tell me. Didn't want me to worry. Rilitha's feathers pressed flat against her body. Even in alien species, some gestures of sympathy were universal. Why did you come here? Shotan asked. You could have refused. Your ambassador would have found another representative. Danny looked out at the swirling storms. I was visiting my daughter. Walked past at the wrong time. Or the right time, maybe. He paused. I've been dying since the day I was born. We all are. Humans, aliens, everyone. The question isn't whether we die. It's what we do with the time we have. And you choose to fight. I choose not to quit. There's a difference. The door opened again. Ethon drifted in, its light soft and uncertain. The ancient Luminari hesitated when it saw the group. I did not mean to interrupt. Plenty of room, Danny said. Shotan brought food. Ethon moved closer, eventually settling near the viewport. Light beings didn't eat, but it seemed to appreciate the company. I have fought in these games for longer than your species has had spaceflight, Ethon said. I thought I understood combat. Technique, discipline, the perfection of form. And now I face an opponent who has none of these things, yet defeats warriors who have devoted centuries to them. I do not understand. Danny thought about how to explain. You ever been in a real fight? Not a tournament. A fight where you might actually die. Ethon flickered. Combat in the games is dangerous. But there are rules. Referees. Medical teams. You know that even if you lose, you'll probably survive. Danny shook his head. When I was 22, a man tried to kill me in an alley behind a bar. He had a knife. I had nothing. There were no rules, no referee, no one coming to help. What did you do? Whatever I had to. Bit him. threw dirt in his eyes, hit him with a trash can lid. Nothing pretty, nothing graceful, just survival. You won. I survived. That's all that matters when it's real. Ethan was silent for a long time. When it spoke again, its voice was softer. Tomorrow, I will fight you with everything I have learned in 200 years. Every technique, every strategy, the full beauty of my art. Danny nodded. And I'll fight you with 58 years of not dying. I know. Ethan's light dimmed slightly. That is what frightens me. They sat together until the station's artificial dawn began, watching the eternal storms of the gas giant roll beneath them. Tomorrow, they would try to defeat each other. Tonight, they were just tired beings far from home, sharing the darkness before the fight. The arena had been transformed. Instead of a flat platform, the combat zone was now a sphere of floating platforms in zero gravity. Obstacles drifted through the space. Light shifted constantly, creating shadows and blind spots. Danny had never fought in zero gravity before. Ethan had evolved in space. The crowd was even larger than before. Word of the humans' impossible victories had spread across the unified worlds. Billions watched from distant planets as Danny Reeves floated into the combat sphere, grabbing a platform edge to steady himself. Ethan entered from the opposite side, gliding through the weightless environment like it was born there. Which in a way it was. The human has no experience in null-gravity combat, the announcer noted. The Luminari have trained in such environments for millennia. This semi-final may be brief. Danny kicked off from his platform, immediately spinning out of control. He crashed into another platform, grabbed it, steadied himself. The crowd laughed. The signal sounded. Ethan attacked with blinding speed. Light-based strikes left trails in the air as the Luminari darted between platforms. Danny barely dodged the first attack, tumbling awkwardly through the sphere. The second attack caught him across the shoulder. Pain flared. Danny spun away, hitting another platform hard. For the first 2 minutes, it was embarrassing. Danny couldn't move properly, couldn't orient himself, couldn't predict where Ethan would come from. The Luminari's light-based fighting style was beautiful, each strike a work of art that left glowing patterns in the air. Danny bled from cuts on his shoulder, his arm, his face. The crowd began chanting Ethan's name. Then something changed. Danny stopped fighting the environment and started using it. He grabbed a platform fragment that had broken loose, holding it as a shield. When Ethan's next strike came, Danny blocked it and used the impact to launch himself backward. Not graceful, not pretty, but effective. He is adapting, Shotan said from the stands. Rilith sat beside him, recorder capturing everything. Watch. He is learning in real time. Danny kicked off a platform at an angle that made no sense in traditional combat. He crashed into another platform, but this time he used the collision to change direction suddenly. Ethan's follow-up strike missed completely. That is not technique, Ethan said, frustration entering its crystalline voice. That is chaos. Yeah, Danny agreed, breathing hard. Blood floated in droplets around his face. It is. He threw the platform fragment at Ethan, not as a weapon, but as a distraction. While the Luminari dodged, Danny launched himself at a different platform, using its edge to swing around and come at Ethan from an unexpected angle. His fist connected with something solid inside Ethan's life form. The Luminari recoiled, shocked. How did you know where to strike? My core is hidden within my light. Watch your patterns, Danny said. The light moves around something. That something doesn't move the same way as the rest. Ethan attacked with renewed fury. The next 10 minutes were brutal. Danny took hit after hit, but he kept moving, kept adapting. He started using the floating obstacles as weapons, as shields, as launching points. 20 minutes in, the fight had become something no one had ever seen. Ethan's graceful combat style was being forced to adapt to Danny's chaos. The Luminari couldn't predict where the human would be because Danny himself didn't seem to know until the last second. He is making it up as he goes, Rilith whispered. There is no plan. There is no style. He simply reacts to whatever happens. That is the human way, Shotan replied. Improvisation elevated to art. 30 minutes. Both combatants were slowing. Ethan's light was dimming. its attacks losing precision. Danny was covered in wounds, moving on pure willpower. 40 minutes. The longest semi-final in tournament history. Danny grabbed a platform edge and pulled himself close to Ethan. The Luminari tried to retreat, but Danny had learned its movement patterns. He anticipated, cut off the escape route, and caught Ethan's core form in a hold that no one had ever used because no one had ever needed to restrain a being of light. Yield, Danny said. Ethan struggled. Its light flared, burning Danny's hands. He held on. I will not lose to chaos, Ethan said. I will not lose to formlessness. Then don't think of it as losing to chaos. Danny's voice was calm despite the pain. Think of it as losing to a guy who refused to quit. The light flared again, then began to fade. Ethan's 200 years of training had never prepared it for an opponent who simply would not stop. How? Ethan asked, its voice fading. How do you keep going? Danny's answer was quiet, heard only by the ancient Luminari. Spite mostly. Ethan went still. The referee drones circled, confirming what the crowd could already see. The Luminari champion had lost consciousness. Danny released his hold and drifted into zero gravity, bleeding, exhausted, barely conscious himself. Medical drones swarmed toward both combatants. Winner, the announcer declared, voice filled with disbelief. Danny Reeves. Earth. The crowd didn't know how to react. Some cheered. Some sat in stunned silence. Some argued about whether what they had witnessed was combat or something else entirely. In the medical bay later, Danny's daughter spoke to him through a communication screen, tears on her face. The doctors say you're hurt badly. Multiple fractures. Internal bleeding. Your knee is destroyed. I know. They want you to withdraw from the finals. I know. Dad, please. Danny looked at the ceiling. His body was a map of pain. Who's the final opponent? Linda paused. They're offering you the championship by default. All remaining champions have withdrawn. They don't want to fight you. Danny closed his eyes. No, he said. Tell them I want to fight. The final arena was simple. A flat circle, nothing more. No obstacles, no tricks. Just two beings and the space between them. Danny walked onto the platform slowly, his injuries wrapped but not healed. The medical staff had told him that fighting could kill him. His body was failing. His knee was held together with emergency bracing. His ribs were cracked, he didn't care. Across from him stood Vornash, a Thalassian champion who had refused to withdraw. The aquatic species rarely competed in surface combat, but Vornash had trained for decades in both environments. He stood 7 feet tall, his blue-green skin glistening with moisture from his suit's internal systems. You did not have to fight, Vornash said. His voice was deep, resonant. The championship was yours. Wouldn't feel earned. Danny stretched his shoulders, wincing. Why didn't you withdraw with the others? Vornash moved closer, towering over the human. I have lived beneath the oceans of my world for 400 years. I have seen many tournaments, many champions, but I have never seen anyone like you. Lucky me, you misunderstand. Vornash's massive hand gestured at Danny's broken body. You are dying. Perhaps not today, perhaps not from this fight, but soon. You have lived less than 60 years. Yet you fight as if you have nothing to lose. Danny considered this. I don't explain. The crowd had gone quiet. 200,000 beings leaned forward, listening to a conversation they could barely hear. My wife died 8 years ago, Danny said. Cancer. Fastest thing I ever saw, and I've seen fast things. My daughters are grown. My gym will survive without me. I've got nothing left to protect, nothing left to prove. Then why fight? Danny smiled, and there was something ancient in it, something that every human recognized, even if they couldn't name it. Because I can. Because I'm still breathing. Because somewhere, probably right now, some young kid on Earth is watching this and thinking maybe they could do impossible things too. He paused. Because every second I'm still standing is a second I refuse to give up. Vornash was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. My people live 500 years. We move slowly, think carefully, plan for generations. We have forgotten what it means to live with such urgency. He lowered into a fighting stance. I asked to fight you, Because I wanted to understand. Now I do. What do you understand? Humans do not fight to win. You fight to matter. Every moment, every breath, every choice. You make them count because you know they are limited. Danny nodded slowly. That's about right. The signal sounded. Vornash attacked with power that should have ended the fight in seconds. His training was ancient and refined, movements flowing like the ocean currents of his homeworld. Danny should have been crushed. Instead, Danny moved, not gracefully, not beautifully. He stumbled, limped, barely dodged. His broken body screamed with every motion, but he kept moving. For the first time in the tournament, Danny didn't fight to exploit weaknesses or confuse opponents. He fought straight ahead, meeting Vornash's attacks with blocks and counters drawn from a lifetime of combat. "You're giving me the fight I requested," Vornash said between exchanges. "An honorable match. You earned it." Danny blocked a strike that numbed his arm. "You're the only one who came here to understand instead of just to win." The fight lasted 15 minutes. No tricks, no chows. Just two warriors testing each other in the oldest way possible. In the end, they both collapsed from exhaustion at nearly the same moment. Vornash hit the ground 1 second before Danny. The referee drone circled, analyzing, calculating. "Winner," the announcer declared. "Danny Reeves, Earth, champion of the Korath Games." The crowd erupted, not just cheering, but something deeper. They had witnessed something that transcended species and tradition. Vornash pushed himself up, looking at Danny with respect that spanned 400 years of experience. It was an honor. Danny, lying on his back and staring at the arena ceiling, laughed weakly. "Same to you, big guy." 3 months later, a ship landed at Danny's gym in Nevada. Alien warriors emerged, 16 of them, representing 12 different species. They had come to train with human coaches. Danny stood in the doorway, his knee finally healing properly thanks to alien medical technology. His daughter stood beside him, still processing the fact that her father had accidentally made Earth one of the most respected species in the unified worlds. "There's going to be more," Linda said. "Many more. I figured. Earth is opening combat academies. They want you to help design the curriculum." Danny watched the alien warriors approach his small, run-down gym with something like religious reverence. "Maybe later," he said. "Right now, I've got students." Inside the gym, Danny gathered his new students. A Dracorian who had trained for decades but never understood adaptation. A Venery who wanted to learn fighting without blades. A young Kreth who had watched the tournament and decided to seek out the human who refused to quit. "First lesson," Danny said, looking around at the gathered aliens. "Forget everything you think you know about combat. Forget our training." The Dracorian looked horrified. "Not forget. Set aside. Your training made you good at one thing. I'm going to teach you to be good at whatever comes next." "How long will this take?" a Venery asked. Danny smiled. It was the smile of a man who had spent 58 years learning and was nowhere close to finished. "For you, the rest of your life. For me." He stretched his shoulders, feeling the familiar ache of old injuries. "I'm still learning." Outside, more ships were landing. Word had spread across the galaxy about the human who defeated champions without a style, without a tradition, without anything except the refusal to stay down. Earth's greatest export, it turned out, wasn't technology or resources. It was stubbornness. And Danny Reeves, champion of the Korath Games, had plenty to share.